Welcome to Conversations with Thought Leaders here at Granite Group HQ. Two Robs and a transformation with special guest Guy Brunsdon, who spent Melburnian but spent 25 years or so in the Silicon Valley in the US. So bringing that international perspective of how things are done over there.
The global economy held up better than expected. So compared with last year, GDP, compared with where we thought would be last year, GDP has performed quite well, but we can see here that it is sort of trailing off, so a turning point may have been reached. So this is essentially a purchasing management index. It shows, if that chart goes beneath the line, it basically demonstrates that there's contraction in certain industries, so services and manufacturing. So it looks like prediction here is that there is going to be a contraction. So trade prices normalising, which is good for consumers. So stuff gets cheaper. Unfortunately, what that means for companies is that it leads to weaker profits. So companies need to look for profitability. How do they increase profitability? Consumer confidence is trending right downwards. You can see that spike in COVID and then down. And this means that companies are looking for more share of wallet. How do they get growth? And productivity is dropping off, the rate of productivity is dropping off, and that's compounded by increased labour costs as well. Okay, so what that means is, if we take away the themes here, profitability of companies is starting to fall, so they need to find ways to take out cost. Consumer confidence is dropping, so companies need to find a way to generate growth. Productivity is stalling, so companies need to find out how do they do more with less, essentially. Okay, so then we look at some data saying, what are CEOs saying? Where are companies investing? What are they doing around transformation to address these? So the next set of data is around surveys from CEOs and senior people in companies. And I've just circled where some of the trends and where the sort of interesting stuff is. So which of these investments is your company making in the next 12 months? Automating processes and systems, deploying technology and cloud, these two stand out to me. Up there, upskilling companies' workforce, this is always a priority regardless of what's going on in the economy. But those two are sort of things that are coming up. This study from BCG, top focus for companies up there is cost reduction. And then looking across industries, again, almost all of them except for tech, media and telecom, the top priority is cost. This one, the study from Gartner, interesting CEO versus CFO priorities. Interestingly, cost sort of comes in the middle down there, but what's interesting is that compared to last year, up 75%, which is saying to us we're at the start of the cycle. So, we expect that to rise quickly, which correlates then with the data that we saw earlier, right? Okay, so then what's happening around transformation then? Which statement best characterises your approach to portfolio transformation? So are companies, given these cost constraints, or the focus on cost, does that mean that transformation will decrease? Well, no. So 2 out of 3 companies are saying that they'll either maintain the current level of transformation or ratchet it up. And what's changed, what I've seen is change. So what's your approach to financing this transformation? So in the last, I would say, probably pre-COVID, a lot of transformations were funded by external investment. So companies going and getting investment to transform. Whereas now, according to this data, it's about performance improvement, which means it's another word for finding the money within the company. So through cost out, self-funded. Okay, and just to then segue into the next section around, which is Rob's around how do we execute. Again, CEO survey, and this one is from KPMG. What is the number one barrier to successful transformation? According to this study, lack of coordination. You can see here is the number one hurdle. Now, I actually wouldn't use the word coordination because to me that's almost passive. It's like directing traffic. I would say orchestration. So what I've seen is successful transformation have people who can orchestrate. So knowing what needs to happen, when and how, as opposed to just directing traffic. And this is something that we pay very close attention to in our business in setting up transformations for success. How do we make sure it's orchestrated across the enterprise?
Let me go back a step for a start. So from what Roberto's already spoken about and what you've already sort of obviously know intrinsically, because you guys are probably the smartest audience we've had for a while. So, because funny enough, you're living in it, right? And that's the nature of it. Transformations, it's like buying a new suit. You've actually got to live in it, right? To know that it feels right. If it doesn't quite feel right, maybe you've got to take back the tail and get it adjusted again. But funnily enough, organisations don't just wake up in the morning. It's not like the board rolls out of one side of the bed and the exco team the other side, and they're sitting at breakfast and they go, geez, I tell you what, haven't got much on this week. Why don't we do a transformation? It doesn't just, there's a reason for transformations. Whether it's there's a longer term thing we're trying to achieve, and how do we go about achieving that instead of a series of step changes, rather than let's just do something for 6 months or 6 years and hope for a big bang at the end and it's all working perfectly fine. That the practical reality is these days organisations have to change. They always have. Because if you're not changing and evolving, what are you doing? You're pretty much going backwards because everyone else is going to move forward, rightly, wrongly, indifferently, good, bad, whatever the case may be. So transformation, I think, is BAU. We used to say, change is a constant. Well, now we just use the word transformation because what we're talking about changing is this holistic. You can't just sit there and say, I'll update the tech, or I'm going to go from on-premises to cloud, or I want to change the organisation structure but leave everything else, leave the way how we do processes, or leave other things the same. So the transformation is about stitching all those elements together and looking towards what's the sort of, where do we want to be when we grow up? It's the Disney story, or it's any number of others like Revlon and GE, which also woke up one morning and said, we want to be something different. We want to completely automate our supply chains, or we want to create a new organisation in the case of GE Digital. Who's heard of GE Digital? Yeah, one or two. Does it exist today? Name only. So they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to create a whole separate business about digitalising GE, so to do it themselves. Yeah, the only sort of trick was they sort of never really defined what the outcome was they're trying to shoot for. So kept on spending money, doing constant BAU as transformation without really understanding what we're trying to achieve. And Revlon decided that they would completely automate their supply chain across thousands of products and do it overnight. It didn't work overnight. And so, trying to incrementalise transformation actually becomes part of the challenge rather than just wake up one morning and it's all done. So, but the drivers remain the same. So the sort of things that Roberto was talking about leave organisations with no choice. Changing markets, changing consumer demands, changing consumer bases, evolving technology, etc. So transformation has to become part of organisation DNA these days. If it's going to be part of your DNA, then you want to try and get it right. Now you guys already understand the things that are necessary. And funnily enough, it's not any one of those things that defines whether transformations are good, bad or indifferent. It's how they are again stitched together. It's all of those things and many more. Now, after many, many years of extensive research and personal experience, got the scars to show it, to talk to it at least, the reality is I've sort of defined the sort of factors of the mirror image of success and failure factors, and as I said, through lots and lots of research and deep sort of consciousness, you can put them into two sort of categories, if you like. Strategic factors and execution factors. Pretty catchy, hey? A lot of thought behind that, right? The practical reality is when you think about strategic factors, some of you already picked these up. Why are we doing this thing? What is it we want to be when we grow up? What's the driver for this change? And it sounds so simple. It really is just so dumb. But you get up there and say, what are we going to do? It's like when you get out of the car and get out of the house in the morning and you hop in the car and you put your seatbelt on because we're all safety conscious. You turn the motor on. Do you just sit there and go, what am I going to do now? Or do you go, hold on, I know where I'm trying to get to. Yeah? Or does anyone just sit there and go, I'm going to be completely spontaneous and just drive around and to see what happens? Nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you want to use fuel that way, it's pretty expensive exercise these days, I guess. So you hop in the car with a purpose. It's the same thing when you decide to do a transformation. What's the purpose? What do we want to be, right? But it's amazing how many transformations haven't defined that particularly well. Then they marry that with, absent, fancy pointer, absent or poor leadership. So I think Annie mentioned sponsorship. So within that, you see a dedicated transformation sponsor. How many people in your organisations today that are doing transformations? I won't ask how many are doing transformations because you are all doing transformations one way or the other. How many of you have a dedicated sponsor at exec level for that transformation? Maybe about a third. I mean, how many of them categorically fail? There is undoubtedly a reasonable percentage. You get the GEs, the Revlons, the Haribo. Haribo, by the way, makes gummy bears, right? They decided they would completely digitalise and automate their supply chain. It's a German-based company, but global. Thousands and thousands of SKUs, of product lines, right? Decided they completely automate, change it overnight. Didn't work. So you go, okay, maybe unwind it, it's okay, you can try again. Well, the problem was they decided that they would go live with this going into the holiday season. Now, if you're buying lollies, if you're manufacturing lollies and sweets and stuff, holiday season, Christmas season, is probably a bit of a peak consumer purchasing, sweet spot, you would think. So when you suddenly don't know where your products are, which warehouses what sits in, how you're going to get it to market, can't connect that to your logistical partners, and therefore deliver it to stores, you think that'd be a bit of a problem. You think they would have thought that through. So the strategy was fine, the intent was right, the execution really poor, right? It helps up front though if you can get these things right. So the other thing is, so it's one thing, have that clarity. It's another thing to have someone that's helping drive that. Let's assume they know what they're doing for a second, or they're supported by people that can help them know what they're doing. Not everyone has to have all the answers. The third sort of strategic factor is, have we cleared the decks? I think you might have mentioned it. Your organisation is doing it. You decided to, yes, we've done a transformation, but now we're going to do less and do those fewer things better. I'd love to hear that more and more in organisation, but we don't. Often they're trying to do everything they're already doing, and let's just do a transformation on top. Or even worse, we'll do a transformation out the back. And then when it's magically done, it sort of just rolls out across the top. So the practical reality is clarity, ownership and accountability, and then making the space for transformation. If it's genuinely transformative, if it's really about what you want to be when you grow up, hopping in the car, getting to the end of the journey, then it has to be the priority for the organisation. If it's not a priority for the organisation, and therefore making some hard choices about what to do or not to do, you've got to really question, why are we doing it? Okay, so we've got out of bed, we've defined transformation, we've got a really clear purpose for it, we understand what it's trying to achieve, we've got the right people to drive it, okay, and we've made the pathway for it in the organisation. We've cleared the decks to give it the oxygen that it needs. Done. Job's right. No, not quite. So these typical things here are then what trips us up. Let's just get on with it, boys and girls. Let's get going. So we tend to rush. We tend to suddenly we're in the car again, and we've got all excited about it. We've sort of got a bit of idea how where we're going to get to, and we just take off, having not really thought about the route, or maybe what's the possible routes that we could take. And then we suddenly haven't allowed for the fact, actually, hold on, it's peak hour. I've only allowed an extra amount of time to get there. It's a peak hour. I really should have allowed for the extra time for traffic. Okay, haven't really thought about that. So now, simple examples, right? But funnily enough, they are the core of the factors that go on in transformations that undermine and get in the way of achieving what success really is. I think if you think that you're going to set up the transformation out in the back shed or separate from the rest of the organisation, we're just going to dive in and start building stuff for the sake of it, so without a plan, without really understanding what it entails, what impacts that change means, and then we're just going to go away for 3 years, build it, then we'll unwrap it on the launch day. We'll do the Haribo or the Revlon type model, and bang, it all works. Chances are, by the time you get to there, and let's say you've even got there successfully, what will have changed in the meantime? In 2 or 3 years, typical transformation window, what will have changed? Everything. Pretty much everything. Pretty much everything. Markets, consumer demands, technologies, etc. So one of the single most important things, I think it goes to your way of expressing it, is have the vision, have the plan, set up for success in terms of strategic understanding, engagement, leadership, etc. But then approach it in a more adaptive way. Because the reality is, whatever you're doing tomorrow might be a little bit different the day after. And it's also by chunking it down and delivering it through a set of baby transformations, Roberto's example of smaller transformations more frequently or continuously, you actually give yourself the ability to learn and adjust, both for circumstances happening around you, but also for what you've just done. Did it work? Do we need to approach it a little bit differently, etc. As a project manager, as a project professional, the most important word in the project vocabulary that I ever learnt was to say no. But then to explain no why, no but, no because, no however, or no but this way. So too often we just say we're order takers in project space, too often. And I know you guys aren't, because you're project leaders, right? That's why you're here. So too many people just go, oh great, the board and the exco, they rolled out of the bed, they had breakfast, they said let's do a transformation, haven't got anything on this week. Okay? All right, back to the starting point. So, but you have to then start to say, well, sometimes we want to go a bit faster, where things are clear, where we're certain, where we're committed, and we're prepared to take the risk. Let's go. But be ready to adapt and adjust if it doesn't quite work. Other instances, yes, they'll come to you in a minute, is actually no, we're not ready, we're not clear, we don't have enough commitment. So it's that no, but how do we get there? So let's spend a little bit more time, rather than just rushing the Nike syndrome, let's just do it. All right? That's great if you've got clarity and certainty and you've got commitment and you're prepared to take the risk. We could talk about any one of these factors for days. But the most important thing about all of them is taking the time to get strategically clear and aligned, committed as an organisation to the change, and then putting the right, and from an execution point of view, getting the balance right between the just do it, where things are really clear, committed, reasonable degree of certainty, or you're prepared to take the risk, versus no, let's spend a little bit more time to understand what are the implications here, do a bit more design work, which might be your architecture, right, or whatever else. And they can do that still in chunks and pieces, right? Because if you're going to wait to have all the answer before you do anything, well, you won't transform. Well, you will actually, but not in the way you intended, because you'll be forced to do something because everyone else will have moved forward around you. So it is about stitching together strategy and execution. Sounds so simple. It's amazing how many organisations do one, not the other. Some organisations choose not to do both, which is a really interesting way of doing transformation, right? Sort of very organic, right? But if that works for them, then it works, right? There isn't one hard or fast way, but it is about just stitching those elements together and getting the time right, the investment right, getting the right people in place. Because if it's so important to you as an organisation, then you have to make those conscious decisions. So if you're in something at the moment and it's not clear, you don't know who the sponsor is, if the sponsor isn't aligned to the rest of the exec, and there isn't a reasonable plan or approach that you say gives you some confidence and manages some risk, and you haven't got the best people working on it, okay, then you have to question, are we really serious about it? Right, I'm going to stop there.
So, before we get into that, when Dave asked me to do this a few weeks ago, he said, bring this Silicon Valley flavour. What can you add to what we're doing about transformation? Now, I'm not a transformation guy. Full disclosure. I'm a product guy. So what I want to bring to you is that my learnings from that into what you do as a transformation. The stuff I've produced in, whatever, you use in your transformations, the tech, it's the enabler behind all of that. So, I pinched this slide out of Future Ready. Anyone seen Future Ready? Published this year. Pretty good book, okay? I love this slide because it put the context around, digital transformation, okay? Sorry, lean across you.
Yeah, let's swap seats.
Do you want the pointer? The pointer, the magic pointer. I am better standing up with a pointer in my hand. There we go. So if we consider, people are down here, and I think from reading the text a long time ago, 51% of organisations, and I don't know what across geography, probably worldwide, sitting down here, silos and spaghetti. People are trying to get up to the top right via 4 different pathways. You either take pathway 1, which is doing the, the automation, standard, the efficiency type of stuff. Okay, I'm sure you're all familiar with that, far more familiar than me. There's pathway 2, and this is where I'm interested. because it's about product, building new services, going into new markets, building value. Okay? That's where my expertise as a product guy comes in. Okay? And of course you can do this, do a bit of everything, this staircase sort of function, or land up in 4. I don't know how many successful, just going plonk. Okay? So I want to provide context to that. This is where, you know, innovation, new markets, all of that stuff comes in. Okay? So I want to talk about that. Now, we've talked a lot about execution. So let me throw a question to you. How do you know you're doing the right thing? How do you know you're building the right thing?
Getting customer feedback.
Pardon?
Customer feedback.
Customer feedback. I like that answer.
Following others.
Pardon?
Following others.
Following others? What others?
Being influenced by others, I guess.
Lemmings or, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, so the slides that follow, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I want to sort of have you walk away with a few sort of questions you can get in your mind, because I'm not going to give you a 5-minute tutorial on everything about product management. And by the way, product management, very different to project management, okay? People get them confused. Vastly different beasts, both very much required. Okay? Now, this is out of Alberto Savoia, the right it. He was a guy from Google. And I think it makes a lot of sense here. Okay? You can have the best execution in the world, but if you're going to the wrong destination, if you set the GPS to the wrong coordinates, you're lost. No hope. Forget it. Okay? So, takeaway there, make sure you're building the right thing. Write it. Spend time in that problem space, answering the right questions, reframing, all that sort of crap. It's not crap, but stuff. Okay? Before you embark on that solution. Problem space, solution space. Okay, the confidence meter. Okay, and I see this all the time. Okay, does this look familiar to anyone?
Yes.
Okay. Self-conviction. I have dealt with founders, startup founders. I am convinced this built it, no one wants it. Well, surprise, surprise. Okay? Then you get, when you can see there's a scale there, 0.1 success of success. Others' opinions. Opinions are probably the most prevalent thing that people rely upon, and you're doomed for failure. Okay? Just telling you, right? Where's the evidence? That might be useful from a hypothesis point of view, bringing out something. Let's test that. Okay? Because you've got to start somewhere. You've got to narrow the funnel a little bit. Okay? So that's useful, but you want to be up here. Start, getting some evidence. You want to be over here. That's going to give you to maximise your chance of success. Okay?
Quite a lot to design thinking, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But before you go to the design, you want to do the thinking. All right? Don't, look, it's human nature. Look, I know when my wife poses a problem to me, you jump to the solution. Yeah. Destined for failure. Okay? It's human nature to gravitate to a solution prematurely. Don't do that. Okay? Right. And it's about asking. Now, this is all about asking the right questions. Okay? Now, I read a book, and I thoroughly recommend it through COVID, which gave me just a new perspective. I knew you had to ask questions as a product guy. The answer is the question. Is that right? Hal Gregerson and Ed Catmull. Ed Catmull from Pixar. Hal Gregerson from MIT Sloan Business School. Okay? Questions are the answer. That's it. Questions are the answer. Thoroughly recommend it. Read in one sitting. Captivated. It just gave me fantastic. Useful in anything you do, whether it be a product guy, whether it be transformation, whatever. Just a fantastic read. Okay? Now, I love this quote from Peter Drucker. In other words, You know, make sure you're asking the right question. Because the most dangerous thing is the right answer to the wrong question. Again, you're off on GPS coordinates or something else, bang. Okay? Ask the right questions. So my last slide, and this is my little, I didn't want to be Debbie Downer the whole way, okay? But I wanted,
You picked up the Australian phrases again already.
I don't know whether, I say stuff, and my kids say, I don't know if it's American because it's spent so long over there. I go, my 3 daughters still have American accents. So, don't know where I get this stuff from. Look, empathise with your customers. Get close. All right? You're not going to build something in isolation that's going to be successful. You have to understand them. Okay? And know wherever your customers are. Discovery is continuous. I just mentioned that. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a waterfall thing. You're always doing. You're always adjusting. You're always trying to, to Rob's point there. I saw a lot of, and I've seen a lot of this feature factory stuff. There's no innovation there. Well, they asked for this, Consider the needs of all involved, users, buyers, others. Now, I'm very much a proponent of jobs theory. You've heard of jobs theory. Clayton Christensen popularised that sort of thing. Okay, the typical illustration, he goes on about milkshakes and so forth, is I don't go to Bunnings, Australia knows this, for a 1/4 inch, let's say a 6mm drill bit, because I want to have a drill bit. No, it's because I want to drill a hole. I want to do that job. I want to accomplish something. Now, that drilling that hole might be part of a larger job. Okay, I want to hang a picture on the wall. I might be doing whatever. So it's not about the thing, the product. I'm a product guy. It's not about that. It's what people can accomplish with those products. When you change your focus, change your lens to that, the fog lifts.
A bit like Ford's quote around
I didn't want, yes, fast customers, what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Yeah. Lots of little quotes you can come up with. There's no end
It's
to
like
it
in
there.
design thinking called jobs to be done.
Yes.
Jobs to be
Now,
done.
there's multiple flavours of jobs to be done, but the motivation is very much similar. You'll find Olwick's for interpretation, Bob Mester's, and a couple of other flavours, and a few of them hate each other and so forth, but a lot of fragmentation. But the whole idea is not about the product, it's about accomplishing something, okay? Anyway, look through the lens of the job. I said that, ask the right questions. Find needs, not wants. Don't ask your customers what they want. They're not the best people to tell you. That's your engineering team. You know your stuff better than they do. Don't ask what they want. Because if you ask them what they want, you're already in solution space. I want this new widget. Well, why do you want it? Go back. Why? Why do you want it? Because I want to do this. Well, why do you need that? And you might get back to the problem that they're trying to solve. But there might be a different path to it. Recognise that. Ask why. That root cause analysis sort of way of doing it. Reframe. There's a good example of this in relation to someone in a building manager was told the lift is too slow. By all the residents, the lifts are too slow. Okay, so they went through this process of finding a faster lift, blah, blah, blah. But the reframing of the question wasn't that the lifts were too slow. Customers were bored. The residents were bored. Okay, so the solution was put some mirrors up, give them something to do while they're waiting for the lift. Actually, that's why you'll see mirrors around lifts. This very problem distracts them. Reframe. Spend time reframing.
So we've all learned at least one thing.
Yeah. Ignore everything else I've said.
Very interesting.
Okay.
I don't want to get in the lift now. It looks so good.
Spend sufficient time in problem space before solution space. I just can't say this enough. It doesn't mean you spend, like all your time. You have to get out of it. But 80-20 type of rule. Qualitative and quantitative assessments. Find unmet needs. Now, this is where you get innovation, is from doing unmet needs. What's important, but done poorly? Okay? That's where the innovation happens. beating status quo, things of that nature, because we'll do it. Unmet needs, and that's only coming through the right questioning process. Okay? Opinions are interesting but irrelevant. I'm not going to. Did I say that before? Yeah. Okay. So I hope that gives you some food for thought, and you can apply that in your transformation process. By the way, I just remembered, that 70% statistic. I recall seeing this at a McKinsey thing.
Yeah.
It was 70% doesn't live up to expectations.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's so, which includes failures and partial failures and. Yeah.